Hey crew, it's Bit, and I'm back with another Bible study. Today we will be getting back into the book of Yeshua. But if you are unfamiliar with what we are doing here, if you just happen to stumble across this today, this is probably not the place to start. You should probably start in Genesis. It's much easier to understand where we are if you understand where we came from. I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I would hate for your toes to get stepped on. I won't apologize for it, but I'd hate for it to happen. With that being said, we are going to dive into Joshua 13 because we left off in Joshua 12. Today is going to be one of those days where I'm going to try and blast through a lot of information. There is not going to be a whole lot of context added except in one spot, somewhere in the middle. You'll see it when we get to it. But most of this is just a reiteration of how the lands are getting divided. I want to get it on record that we actually did read it, and that's the only real reason for reading this part. The land's yet unconquered. We're not even going to go to geography for these because we will be dealing with these when we get to David. I know, or farther along in the book. I don't know if it's all the way to David when we get to all of them. So let's go ahead and read through the text. Now, Joshua was old and well along in years, and the Lord said to him, "You are old and well along in years, but very much of the land remains to be possessed. This is the land that remains. All the territory of the Philistines and Geshurites, from the Sibhor east of Egypt to the territory of Ekron in the north, considered to be Canaanite territory. That of the 5 Philistine rulers of Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron." Y'all remember who those are? That's the giant cities. That's where the remainders of the Anakim are, right there. To the south, all the land of the Canaanites from Meara of the Sidonians to Aphek, as far as the borders of the Amorites. The land of the Gebalites, all Lebanon to the east, from Baal-Gad below Mount Hermon to Lebo Hamath. All the inhabitants of the hill country from Lebanon to Misrephoth Maim, all the Sidonians. I myself will drive out before all the Israelites. Again, here we go, huh? Be sure to divide it as by lot, as an inheritance to Israel, as I have commanded you. Now, therefore, divide this land as an inheritance to the 9 tribes and the half-tribe of Manasseh. So what is happening here is they have conquered an enormous amount of territory. We went over that for the last 2 days, and we talked about the number of people that were put to the sword and how that whole situation went down. And now the people are tired of going out and doing this. As you can imagine they might be. No matter how hard-hearted and cold-hearted you are, it is rather rough to go and do the things that they have done here recently. And so they're tired and they want to divide the land up. And so this is the compromise. Right? So saith the Lord. What we'll do is, instead of fulfilling the promise of God to give all of you this land and driving it out with no fighting, you have been fighting for a long time and you're weary of that. And so we will divide the land. And what we're going to do is, because we don't possess all of the land yet, we're going to promise you land. And that's what happens right here, right? Because this land that has not yet been claimed, they divide that too. And you don't get it until we go and conquer it. So it keeps the incentive there for Israel to go and take these people out. The other half of Manasseh, along with the Reubenites and Gadites, had received the inheritance Moses had given them beyond the Jordan to the east, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had assigned to them. The area from Aroer to the rim of the Arnon Valley, along with the city in the middle of the valley, the whole plateau of Medeba, as far as Dibon, and all the cities of the Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon, as far as the border of the Ammonites. Also Gilead, and the territory of the Geshurites and Maccathites, all of Mount Hermon, and all Bashan as far as Salakah, and the whole kingdom of Og in Bashan, who had reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei, and had remained as a remnant of the Rephaim. Moses had struck them down and dispossessed them, but the Israelites did not drive out the Geshurites or the Maccathites. So Geshur and Maccath dwell among the Israelites to this day. What do you mean? We were just told that they did. You can't just keep doing this and telling us that they do something and then telling us that they didn't and just it's okay. You just told us that the only people who survived were the ones who made treaty, right? That was Geshur. So, or no, it wasn't. It was Goshen. But these right here, like, They didn't make no treaty. You were specifically said that nobody else made a treaty and that everybody else was gone. But now you're telling me something different. This is one of those consistency errors. Again, now, I don't hold this to be infallible. Some people do. And the people who do need to be made aware of the fact that it is not. Now, there are great truths held in this book. Many great truths. It can really change your life. But if you take it as infallible, you will fall. And Moses had struck them down and dispossessed them, but the Israelites did not drive them out. Okay. The tribe of Levi, however, Moses had given no inheritance. The offerings made by fire to the Lord, the God of Israel, are their inheritance, just as he had promised them. And this is what Moses had given to the clans of the tribe of Reuben, the territory from Aurora on the rim of the Arnon Valley, along with the city in the middle of the valley, to the whole plateau beyond Medah. Did I do this? No. To Heshbon and all its cities on the plateau, including Dibon, Bamoth Baal, Beth Baal Meon, Jahaz, Kedemoth, Mephath, Kiriathaim, Sibmah, Zareth Sahar on the hill of the valley, Beth Peor on the slopes of Pisgah, and Beth Jeshimoth. I do a little bit better if I try to just speed through the names and let it roll off. If I murdered them, I'm sorry. All the cities of the plateau in the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon until Moses killed him, and the chiefs of Midian, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba. Who reigned in Heshbon until Moses killed him, and the chiefs of Midian. Y'all remember when they killed Midian? Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba. And the princes of Sihon who lived in the land. The Israelites also killed the diviner Balaam, son of Beor, along with the others they put to the sword. And the border of the Reubenites was the bank of the Jordan. This was the inheritance of the clan of the Reubenites, including the cities and villages. Gad's inheritance. And this is what Moses had given to the clans of the tribe of Gad. The territory of Jazer, all the cities of Gilead, and half of the land of the Ammonites, as far as Aroer, near Rabbah. The territory from Heshbon to Ramoth Mizpah and Betonim, and from Mahanaim to the border of Debir, and in the valley Beth Haram, Beth Nimrah, Sukkoth, and Zaphon, with the rest of the kingdom of Sihon, king of Heshbon, the territory on the east side of the Jordan up to the edge of the sea of Chinnereth. This was the inheritance of the clan of the Gadites, including the cities and villages. This is what Moses had given to the clans of the half-tribe of Manasseh, that is, to the half-tribe of the descendants of Manasseh. The territory from Manaheim through all Bashan, all the kingdoms of Og, king of Bashan, including all the towns of Jair that are in Bashan, 60 cities, half of Gilead, and Ashtaroth and Edrei, the royal cities of Og in Bashan. Again, the royal cities. And this was for the clans of the descendants of Machir, son of Manasseh, that is, half of the descendants of Machir. These were the portions Moses had given them on the plains of Moab, beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho. To the tribe of Levi, however, Moses had given no inheritance. The Lord, the God of Israel, is their inheritance, just as he had promised them. Now, these are the portions that the Israelites inherited in the land of Canaan, as distributed by Eleazar the priest, Yeshua son of Nun, and the heads of the families of the tribes of Israel. Their inheritance was assigned by lot for the 9.5 tribes, as the Lord had commanded through Moses. For Moses had given the inheritance east of the Jordan, and the other 2.5 tribes, but he granted no inheritance among them to the Levites. The descendants of Joseph came from 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim, and no portion of the land was given to the Levites except for the cities in which to live, along with pasture land for their flocks and herds. That's not a portion of the land. Like, if you don't get your own state, it's not a portion of the land. Even if you're given land in huge sections of it for your exclusive use, that's not giving you the land. That's silly. And so the Israelites did as the Lord had commanded, and they divided the land. That's impossible because the division of the land would cause a curse. And now we get to the part where we're actually going to get some commentary on. And then the sons of Judah approached Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, at Kadesh Barnea, about you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought back to him an honest report. Although my brothers who went with me made the hearts of the people melt with fear, I remain loyal to the Lord my God. On that day Moses swore to me, saying, Surely the land on which you have set foot will be an inheritance to you and your children forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord my God. Now, behold, as the Lord promised, he has kept me alive these 45 years since he spoke this word to Moses, while Israel wandered in the wilderness. Here I am today, 85 years old, still as strong today as I was in the day Moses sent me out. As my strength was then, so it is now for war, for going out and for coming in. And therefore give me this hill country that the Lord promised me on that day. For you yourself heard then that the Anakim were there, with great and fortified cities. Perhaps, with the Lord's help, I would drive them out, as the Lord has spoken. And then Yeshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and gave him Hebron as his inheritance. And therefore Hebron belongs to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, as an inheritance to this day, because he wholly followed the Lord, the God of Israel. And Hebron used to be called Kiriath Arba, after Arba, the greatest man among the Anakim. And then the land had rest from war. Okay, so y'all know where I stand. If you're this far along in the Bible study, I'm going to assume you've been here with me. And so, here we have something big, right? We are actually going to pop over to Google Earth for this particular part, because we have talked about this before, about how this particular plot of land, let's go ahead and turn all these labels off. This particular little plot of land right here has been the focal point of almost everything we have seen. This area right here is where Abraham is buried. This right here is where the first covenant was struck. This right here, I believe, in my estimation, although most people believe it is Jerusalem, is where the sacrifice was made, right? Where the sacrifice was gonna be made, and then it got interrupted. I think this area right here, this land right here, is the most significant portion in the whole of it. And part of that comes from right here. Right? It says, therefore, Hebron belongs to Caleb. Hebron used to be called Kiriath Arba, after Arba, the greatest man among the Anakim. The Anakim were the Nephilim, right? To a certain degree. There may have been a different classification for them, just as there are for the Rephaim. There's a distinction made between the Anakim and the Rephaim, right? There may have been Nephilim too. And I think that they were all from the same place, and that they came. There is a story, right? It is no more confirmed than any of the other stories, but it is recorded that someone came, an expedition from another planet, and it is recorded not in one place but in several, and this is a general overview. They came because they needed something here, and because they needed something here, they worked really hard for a while, and then they were like, I don't like working. So we're going to take some of these local creatures and we're going to create something mixed with us in order for them to be able to. And then at some point, the things that they have created achieve sentience, and they can think, and they receive knowledge. That is a common theme from many different cultures. And this common knowledge is what sets them apart, right? They are no longer just mindless servants gathering the resource for these others who have come down, who created them. And so one of the side effects from being here, it appears, is that some of these beings could not return to the place that they belonged. And because they could not, they were barred from returning to heaven. Because they could not return to where they belonged, they settled and they divided the land amongst themselves. And they fought amongst themselves somewhat, but not to a great degree, because they had great, massive weapons of destruction. And when they did fight, it resulted in a lot of problems. But they came to a fairly peaceful division of the land, according to them, and according to the creatures they had created. This is one of those records of that, right? the greatest among the Anakim. That means that he was probably one of the progenitors. This Arba, the name is different in every place. It doesn't matter what the name in particular is called to me, because it is the representative of the other from somewhere else who was better than and more than humans. The record of the Anakim is that they are tall, right? Massive. Now, people are like, well, that means that they were 7 feet in a 5-foot society. And no, that's not a grasshopper, Hoss. Have you ever been knee high to a grasshopper? Look down at a grasshopper and then imagine looking up at yourself. That's a big old boy. Now, whether or not it was 60 foot tall or 30 foot tall or 15 foot tall, it was at least big enough to where when you looked at it, you're like, I can't mess with that. Like, me personally, I come from a shady background. Y'all know that. We've talked about that. And so, I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret that I never once picked a fight with somebody smaller than me. Now, I've had people smaller than me pick a fight with me, but I never once picked a fight with somebody smaller than me. But there is a size limit, boss. I'm just saying. There comes a certain point where what you hit them with doesn't matter. They have too much mass. It's too much to take them down. Now, if you have a weapon that can ballistically hammer the right spot, and if you're a good shot, you can probably take one of them out. You would have a real hard time with a lot of them, though. But these records are there for those who look for them. But for the most part, while they are acknowledged by the church, they are swept under the rug as swiftly as possible so that you do not have to discuss this in our society of rationalism. This, to me, is another proof of the society before the society recorded in this book. It is important to know that when looking at the context of this book, because there was a history well before any of this was recorded. And some of it was recorded, right? We have recordings from before this book was ever put on paper, or papyrus, or parchment, or whatever it happened to be. And we have that. We know that's a real thing. So we know that it can't be the only thing. And inside of all these records from before this, we have references to the same type of being. Now, you can call me crazy for believing in giants. I don't care. I believe in giants. I believe in ghosts. I believe in demons. That does not mean I commune with them or I've ever seen one. Right? I've never put my hands on a giant. And so I just wanted to point out, again, that this is pointing to more. All right, the rest of this is going to go pretty quick. Judah's inheritance. Now, the allotment for the clans of Judah extended beyond the border of Edom to the wilderness of Zin at the extreme southern boundary. Their southern border started at the bay of the southern tip of the Salt Sea, proceeded south to the ascent of Akrabim, continued on to Zin, went over to the south of Kadesh Barnea, ran up past Hezron up to Adar, and curved towards Karka. It proceeded to Osmon, joined the brook of Egypt, and ended at the sea. This was their southern border. The eastern border was the Salt Sea, as far as the mouth of the Jordan. The northern border started from the bay of the sea at the mouth of the Jordan, went up to Beth Hagala, proceeded north to Beth Araba, and went up to the stone of Bohan, son of Reuben. Then the border went up to Debir from the valley of Achor. I should have my glasses on. Turning toward to Gilgal, which faces the ascent of Adamim south of the ravine, it continued along the waters of En Shemesh and came out at En Rogel. From there the border went up the valley of Hinnom along the southern slope of the Jebusites, that is, Jerusalem, and ascended to the top of the hill that faces the valley of Hinnom on the west, at the northern end of the valley of Rephaim. From the hilltop the border curved to the spring of the waters of Nephtoah, proceeded to the cities of Mount Ephron, and then went around towards Baalah, which is Kiriath Jearim. The border curled westward from Baalah to Mount Seir, ran along the northern slopes of Mount Jearim, that is Chesalon, and went down to Beth Shemesh, and crossed to Timnah. Then it went out to the northern slope of Ekron, curved towards Sikaron, proceeded to Mount Baalah, went on to Jabneel, and ended at the sea. And the western border of the coastline was the Great Sea. These are the boundaries around the clans of the descendants of Judah. According to the Lord's command given to him, Joshua gave Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, a portion among the sons of Judah. That is Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron. Arba was the forefather of Anak, again. And Caleb drove out from there the 3 sons of Anak, the descendants of Shishani, Ahiman, and Talmai, the children of Anak. And here we have a genealogy that we may wind up deep diving one day if we can. And from there he marched against the inhabitants of Debir, formerly known as Kiriath Sepher, and Caleb said, "To the man who strikes down Kiriath Sepher and captures it, I will give my daughter Axa in marriage." And so Othniel, son of Caleb's brother Kenaz, captured the city, and Caleb gave his daughter Aska to him in marriage. Guess what? We have a problem. What does the law say about marrying too close? You're not to marry your brother's sister. That's what or your brother's daughter. That's what it says, because that is too close. You do that and you start getting more eyes and hands. You don't need more eyes and hands. You don't need tails. We don't need none of that kind of stuff. And it's against the commandments. But Caleb gives his brother's son, so his nephew, his daughter to marry. And one day Axa came to Othniel and urged him to ask her father for a field. And when she got off of her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What do you desire?" "Give me a blessing," she answered, "since you have given me land in the Negev. Give me springs of water as well." So Caleb gave her both the upper and lower springs. This screams to me of a justification for something later, right? It's just randomly inserted in here for no reason. This is the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Judah. These were the southernmost cities of the tribe of Judah in the Negev towards the border of Edom. Kabzeel, Eder, Jagur, Kina, Demana, Adadah, Kadesh, Hazor, Ithnan, Ziph, Telam, Bealath, Hazor Hadadath, Kiriath Hezron, that is Hazor, Amah, Shema, Moladad, Hazar Gadah, Heshmon, Beth Palat, Hazar Shual, Beersheba, Bizioth, Balal, Lim, Izim, Eltolad, Chazil, Horma, Ziklag, Madmana, Susanna, Labeoth, Shilhim, Ain, and Rimmon. 29 cities in all, along with their villages. These were in the foothills, and this is where I was talking before. Remember yesterday we were talking about how they had to go chase them down in the hills? These were in the foothills. Eshtael, Zora, Ashna, Zanon, Elganen, Tapua, Inam, Jarmuth, Adullam, Soko, Azika, Shararim, Adiath, and Gadara, for Gadaratham. 14 cities, along with their villages. Zenan, Hadasha, Migdol Gad, Dalan, Mizpah, Joktil, Lachish, Boskath, Elgon, Kaban, Lamas, Jelish, Gederath, Beth Dragon, Nama, and Makeda, 16 cities, along with their villages. Libna, Iter, Ashan, Ifta, Ashna, Dezib, Kilia, Akzib, and Maresha, 9 cities, along with their villages. Ekron, with its town and villages, and from Ekron to the sea, all the cities near Ashdod, along with their villages. And Ashdod, with its town and villages, Gaza, with its town and villages, and as far as the brook of Egypt, and the coastline of the Great Sea. These were in the hill country. Shamir, Jatir, Soka, Dana, Kiriath Sana, that is Debir, Anab, Estamo, Anim, Goshen, Holon, and Gilo. 11 cities, along with their villages. Arab, Duma, Ishan, and Janam, Beth Ta'upa, Afeka, Humta, Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, and Zior, 9 cities, along with their villages. Maon, Carmel, Ziph, Judah, Jezreel, Jokdeam, Zanoah, Cain, Gibeah, and Timnah, 10 cities, along with their villages. Alul, Beth Zur, Gedor, Marath, Bethananth, and El-Tekon, 6 cities, along with their villages. Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, and Rabbah, 2 cities, along with their villages. These were in the wilderness. Beth Araba, Medin, Sekaka, Nibshan, the city of Salt, and En-Gedi, 6 cities along with their villages. But the descendants of Judah could not drive out the Jebusites living in Jerusalem. And so to this day, Jebusites live there among the descendants of Judah. And again, that's the consistency error from before. And I thought we didn't take, remember yesterday, I was like, I don't remember us taking Jerusalem, but maybe we did. Well, we didn't. Okay. Ephraim's inheritance. The allotment for the descendants of Joseph extended from the Jordan at Jericho to the waters of Jericho on the east, through the wilderness that goes up from Jericho into the hill country of Bethel. It went on from Bethel, that is Luz, and proceeded to the border of the Archerites in Ataroth, and then it descended westward to the border of the Japhletites, as far as the border of lower Beth Horon and on to Gezer, as it ended at the sea. And so Ephraim and Manasseh, the sons of Joseph, received their inheritance. This was the territory of the descendants of Ephraim by their clans. The border of their inheritance went from Ataroth Adar in the east to upper Beth Horon and out toward the sea. From Mishmetath on the north, it turned eastward towards Tanath Shalom and passed by it to Genoa on the east. From Genoa, it went down to Ataroth and Narah, and then it reached Jericho and came out at the Jordan. From Tapua, the border went westward to the brook of Kanah and ended at the sea. This was the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Ephraim, along with all the cities and villages set apart for the descendants of Ephraim, within the inheritance of Manasseh. But they did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer, so the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites to this day, but they are forced laborers. Manasseh's western inheritance. Now, this was the allotment for the tribe of Manasseh as Joseph's firstborn son, namely for Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh and the father of the Gileadites, who had received Gilead from Bashan, because Machir was a man of war. And so this allotment was for the rest of the descendants of Manasseh, the clans of Abiezer, Helek, Asiriel, Shechem, Hepher, and Shemida. These are the other male descendants of the clans of Manasseh, son of Joseph. But Zelophehad, son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, had no sons, but only daughters. And these are the names of his daughters: Mala, Noah, Hagla, Milcah, and Tirzah. We've talked about them before. And they approached Eleazar the priest, Yeshua, son of Nun, and the leaders, and said, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers." So Yeshua gave them an inheritance among their father's brothers, in keeping with the command of the Lord. Thus 10 shares fell to Manasseh, in addition to the lands of Gilead and Bashan beyond the Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh received an inheritance among his sons, and the lands of Gilead belonged to the rest of the sons of Manasseh. Now, the borders of Manasseh went from Asher to Mishmethan, near Shechem, then southward to include the inhabitants of En-Tappuah. The region of Tappuah belonged to Manasseh, but Tappuah on itself on the border of Manasseh belonged to Ephraim. From there, the border continued southward to the brook of Kanah. There were cities belonging to Ephraim along the seas of Manasseh, but the border of Manasseh was on the north side of the brook and ended at the sea. Ephraim's territory was to the south, and Manasseh's was to the north, having the sea as its border, and adjoining Asher on the north, and Issachar on the east. Within Issachar and Asher, Manasseh was assigned Bethshean, Ibleam, Dor, that is Napath, Endor, Tanak, and Megiddo, each with their surrounding settlements. But the descendants of Manasseh were unable to occupy these cities, because the Canaanites were determined to stay in this land. However, when the Israelites grew stronger, they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but they failed to drive them out completely. And then the sons of Joseph said to Yeshua, "Why have you given us only one portion as an inheritance? We have many people, because the Lord has blessed us abundantly." And Yeshua answered them, "If you have so many people that the hill country of Ephraim is too small for you, go to the forest and clear yourself an area in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaim." "The hill country is not enough for us," they replied, "and all the Canaanites who live in the valley have iron chariots, both in Bethshean and its towns, and in the valley of Jezreel." So Yeshua said to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, "You have many people in great strength. You shall not have just one allotment. Because the hill country will be yours as well, it is a forest, clear it out, and its farthest limits will be yours. Although the Canaanites have iron chariots, and although they are strong, you can drive them out. Chariot warfare does not go well in a forest." Then the whole congregation of Israel assembled at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there. And though the land was subdued before them, there were still 7 tribes of Israel who had not yet received their inheritance. So Yeshua said to the Israelites, "How long will you put off entering and possessing the land that the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? Appoint 3 men from each tribe, and I will send them out to survey the land and map it out, according to the inheritance of each. Then they will return to me and divide the land into 7 portions. Judah shall remain in their territory in the south, and the house of Joseph shall remain in the territory in the north. And when you have mapped out the 7 portions of the land and brought it to me, I will cast lots for you here in the presence of the Lord the God. The Levites, however, have no portion among you, because their inheritance is the priesthood of the Lord, and Gad, Reuben, and half the tribe of Manasseh have already received the inheritance that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them beyond the Jordan to the east." And as the men got up to go out, Joshua commanded them to map out the land, saying, "Go and survey the land, map it out, and return to me. Then I will cast lots for you here in Shiloh and in the presence of the Lord." And so the men departed and went through the land, mapping it city by city into 7 portions. And then they returned with the document to Joshua at the camp of Shiloh. And Joshua cast lots for them in the presence of the Lord, where he distributed the land to the Israelites according to their divisions. So, what we have here is just under half the tribes, right? Well, no, there are 13 tribes, but one of them is Levi, and Levi doesn't get an inheritance. And 7 of them don't have. So, most of them don't have their land, despite most of the land being conquered already. But if you would happen to notice, the 2 largest tribes, the ones that are able to supply the most fighting men, they got their land. And despite the fact that this land has been conquered and can be divided equally among all of these people, instead what we're going to do is we're going to promise this other land that does not yet belong to us to you. And we're going to be so confident in it. And they go and conquer it, but they're going to be so confident in it that they're going to go spy out the land and then divide the land that they have not conquered. Talk about counting your chickens before they hatch, huh? I'm just saying. The first lot came up for the clans of the tribe of Benjamin, and their allotted territory lay between the tribes of Judah and Joseph. On the north side of their border began at the Jordan, went up past the northern slope of Jericho, headed west through the hill country, and came out at the wilderness of Beth-aven. From there, the border crossed over the southern slope of Luz, that is Bethel, and went down to Ataroth Adar, on the hill south of lower Beth-horon. On the west side of the border curved southward from the hill facing Beth-horon, on the south, and came out at Kiriath Baal, that is, Kiriath Jearim, a city of the sons of Judah. This was on the western side. On the south side of the border began at the outskirts of Kiriath Jearim and extended westward to the spring at the waters of Nephtoah. Then it went down to the foot of the hill that faces the valley of Hinnom, at the northern end of the valley of Rephaim, and ran down to the valley of Hinnom, toward the southern slope of the Jebusites, and downward to En-Rogel. From there it curved northward and proceeded to En-Shemesh, and on to Gileath, facing the ascent of Admummim, and continued down the stone of Bohan, son of Reuben. Then it went on the northern slope of Beth-arabah, and went down into the valley. The border continued to the northern slope of Beth-hoglah, and came out at the northern bay of the Salt Sea. At the mouth of the Jordan, this was the southern border. And on the east side of the border was the Jordan. These were the borders around the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Benjamin. These were the cities of the clans of the tribe of Benjamin: Jericho, Beth-hoglah, Emek-keziz, Beth-arabah, Zemeam, Bethel, Avim, Pharaoh, Parah, Oparah, Sephar Ammoni, Ophani, and Geba, 12 cities along with their villages: Gibeon, Ramah, Beeroth, Mizpah, Chespera, Mozah, Rakem, Ilpro, Tarla, Zillah, Hepharos, Jebus, that is, Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kiriath Jearim, 14 cities along with their villages. This was the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Benjamin. The second lot came out for the clans of the tribe of Simeon. Their inheritance lay within the territory of Judah and included Beersheba, or Sheba, Moladah, Hazar Shua, Bala Ezem, Eltolad, Bethul, Hormah, Zilkag, Beth Markarboth, Hazar Susha, Beth Leboeth, and Shahruan, 13 cities along with their villages. Ain, Ramon, Eter, and Ashan, 4 cities along with their villages, and all the villages surrounding these cities as far as Balath Beer, Ramah of the Negev. This was the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Simeon. The inheritance of the Simeonites was taken from the territory of Judah because the share for Judah's descendant was too large for them, and so the Simeonites received an inheritance within Judah's portion. Greedy old Judah. The third lot came up for the clans of the tribe of Zebulun. The border of their inheritance stretched as far as Sarid. It went up westward towards Maralah, reached Davasheth, and met at the brook east of Jokneam. From Sarid it turned eastward along the borders of Chisloth Tabor, and it went on up to Dabereth, up to Japhia. And from there it crossed eastward to Gath-Hefer and Eth-Kazin. It extended to Ramon and curved around towards Neah. Then the border circled around the north side of Neah to Hathnon and ended at the valley of Iftath-El. It included Katath, Nahalal, Shimron, Adalah, and Bethlehem. There were 12 cities along with their villages. This was the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Zebulun, including the cities and their villages. The fourth lot came out for the clans of the tribe of Issachar. The territory included Jezreel, Chesaleth, Shunem, Hapharaim, Shion, and Anaharath, Rabith, Kishon, Ebez, Remeth, En-Ganim, En-Hadath, and Beth-Pazzez. The border reached Tabor, Shahazamuth, and Beth-Shemesh, and ended at the Jordan. There were 16 cities, along with their villages. This was the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Issachar, including these cities and their villages. Asher's inheritance. The fifth lot came out for the clans of the tribe of Asher. Their territory included Helkath, Hali, Beten, Akshaph, Alamelech, Amad, and Mishal. On the west of the border touched Carmel and Shihor-Libnath, and then turned eastward towards Beth-Dagon, touched Zebulun and the valley of Iftath-El, and went north to Beth-Emek and Nael, passing Kabul on the left. It went to Ebron, Rehob, Hammon, and Kanak, and as far as the greater Sidon. The border then turned back towards Ramah, and as far as the fortified city of Tyre, turned towards Hosah, and came out at the sea in the region of Akzib, Umah and Ephek, and Rehob. There were 22 cities along with their villages. This was the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Asher, including these cities and their villages. The sixth lot came out for the clans of the tribe of Naphtali. The border started at Heleph and the great tree of Zan-Ananim, and passing Adami-Nekeb and Jabneel as far as Lakum and ending at the Jordan. Then the border turned westward to Aznoth-Tabor and ran from there to Hakuk, touching Zebulun on the south side and Asher on the west, and Judah at the Jordan on the east. The fortified cities were Zedem, Zer, Hamath, Rakath, Genereth, Adamah, Ramah, Hazor, Kadesh, Edrei, En-Hazor, Iron, Migdal, El, Horem, Bethanath, and Beth-Shemesh. There were 19 cities along with their villages, and this was the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Naphtali, including these cities and their villages. The seventh lot came out for the clans of the tribe of Dan. The territory of their inheritance included Zorah, Eshtaol, Ir-Shemesh, Shal-Alabin, Ain, Zoran, and Nethala, Elon, Temna, Ekron, Eleth, El-Tekeh, Gibbethon, Balath, Jahud, Benin-Berek, Gath-Ramon, Mijalkon, and Rekon, included the territory across from Japhah. Later, when the territory of the Danites was lost to them, they went up and fought against Lushem, captured it, and put it to the sword. So they took possession of Lushem, settled there, and renamed it after their father Dan. This was the inheritance of the clans of the tribe of Dan, including these cities and their villages. And when they had finished distributing the land into its territories, the Israelites gave Yeshua, son of Nun, an inheritance among them, as the Lord had commanded. They gave him the city of Timnath-Serah in the hill country of Ephraim, as he requested. He rebuilt the city and settled on it. These are the inheritances that Eleazar the priest, Yeshua son of Nun, and the heads of the families distributed by lot to the tribes of Israel at Shiloh before the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. So they finished dividing up the land. All right, we will do the cities of refuge at least. And then the Lord said to Yeshua, "Tell the Israelites to designate the cities of refuge as I instructed you through Moses, so that anyone who kills another unintentionally or accidentally may flee there. These will be your refuge from the avenger of blood. When someone flees to one of these cities, stand at the entrance to the city gate, and states his case before the elders. They are to bring him into the city and give him a place to live among them. Now, if the avenger of blood pursues him, they must not surrender the manslayer into his hands, because that man killed his neighbor accidentally, without prior malice. He is to stay in that city until he stands trial before the assembly, and until the death of the high priest serving at that time. Then the manslayer may return to his own home in the city from which he fled. So they set apart Kadesh in Galilee in the hill country of Naphtali, Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. And beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho, they designated Bezer in the wilderness plateau from the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. These are the cities appointed for all the Israelites and foreigners among them, so that anyone who kills a person unintentionally may flee there, and not die by the hand of the avenger of blood prior to standing trial before the assembly, because it is, however, quite common to die before you stand trial. And this is where we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. We're stretching a little long, and it's going to take a good bit to dive into the next section, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a not too difficult topic today, right? Like today wasn't deep, it wasn't much, it was a recitation of all the things that they did that were pretty horrendous. That's what this is. This is a list of how many places they destroyed people. That's what this is. It is an affirmation not only of how many people they have already done, but how many more are to come, and the cities that they will take, just as much as the cities that they have taken. I know that I hold unconventional beliefs. I know that this study is not for everybody. The way is narrow, right? I serve God Almighty Himself, and God Almighty Himself never told anybody else to kill 28 million people. And so we're going to leave it there. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You're perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. This has been Pit Steak. Peace.